Great Writers Media.
Welcome to the Books of the Month show. I am your host today, Dr. Marilyn Todman. I want you to help me welcome a phenomenal author, a phenomenal guest, Vincent Gagliano. I hope I pronounced that right, Vincent.
Dr. Todman, it's just fine. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, it's good to have you on the show. Well, I want to say this to you, Vincent. Your book, The Art of War Simplified, sounds like a bestseller to me. Tell us a little bit about this book and how this book came on.
Sure. So the real seeds of it started back in my high school. It was very big on, they were very big on fine arts, Westminster Academy in Fort Lauderdale, but especially near the end of my senior year of college, started to take a very serious interest in business, and was very passionate about reading a lot of books by like great coaches and, various variety of sports and business leaders and so on and so forth. And I did notice this copy of this book, The Art of War, all on the shelves, but I noticed that a lot of the translations that were very easy to read and understand were for very specific audiences, while a lot of the books that were like more word for word were very confusing, very hard to understand. So really my goal with that translation was to find a gap. So I couldn't find the book I wanted, so essentially I wrote it. And now here we are today.
Okay, beautiful. So tell me a little bit about yourself first before we get into the book.
Sure. So I'm currently selling Medicare insurance at a brokerage called Your Way. I live out of Tampa, Florida. So as stated before, went to high school. My high school is very big on fine arts, drama, but I was much more of like the math nerd growing up into college and even into my professional career as it was. And then, let's see, just scream from what's. And then anyway, as well. So also it never really occurred to me, but my parents had both like a creative bent. So my mother was very into like the keyboard, playing the piano, and my father was into the guitar and was an amateur chef. And I realize now that, there was this creative bent that never really got expressed until much later on in my life, I believe, in this book. And just something where it's been a great blessing, been a great journey. I've realized that, the skills that I learned publishing translated into other facets of my life and helped me get into school and succeed and beyond. And it's really made me a better person.
Beautiful. And I see that your career is in sales and business. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Currently in sales, but past few years was definitely in business as well, especially like banking and financial services, a little bit of insurance on the side, and also a little bit of like loan underwriting as well.
Okay. Now, I noticed that in your book, The Art of War Simplified, how can you tie war into business? Tell me a little bit about that.
That's a really good question, Doctor. So what I would say is ultimately in business, a lot of it is about how do you make the most profit possible? How do you really get the biggest piece of the pie? And your competitors, have their own share that they try to get, but they do make you great as well. So in so many ways, a lot of it, there's a lot of like conflicts and trying to really make your own way and get your own wins. And so a lot of that definitely translates over. And I did notice that as well. And this was something I noticed in a lot of the translations that I'd seen as well. But a lot of it is about the wins don't necessarily come in, fatalities or in territory, God forbid. They're more like in profit, dollars and cents, media recognition. Yes. So it's kind of an evolution, a more simplified or a more evolved version of it, if you will.
Now, you used the term simplified. Can you give us 3 simplified tactics that you would share with someone that is in business or sales for themselves if they're trying to reach that multi-million-dollar mark?
Sure. So first I would say is use the normal to engage and the extraordinary to win. So really figure out what makes you special and really excel and exceed at that. Probably what I would say number 2 is having a great degree of self-awareness. So there's the saying, know thyself, but the person who said that also said, know all of thyself. So having that sense of self-awareness and being able, and I'd say third is surround yourself with the right team. No
Mm-hmm.
general wins a battle alone. There's
Mm-hmm.
soldiers, you have your superiors as well. So really making sure you have people that complement that and complement
Mm-hmm.
what you do very well
Mm-hmm.
also helps out with that as well.
Okay, okay. I'm going back to number two when you talk about self-awareness, and then you're talking about the art of war simplified. With self-awareness, would you not also say that if we're really going into simplified war, that you would want to consider um, who you're fighting with, their history, all about them, so you know how to fight that war? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So absolutely. So what I would
Knowing your
say is,
competition, knowing who you,
okay.
knowing your competition, knowing the company that you're trying to close that sale with, and you're trying to do business with, knowing all about them. Can you enlighten us on that?
Absolutely. And, this is something I see. I don't sell to businesses or Medicare. It's not like business to business. It's more to a consumer. So really knowing your consumer, taking that time, building that trust, establishing
Yes,
that rapport, it's
yes.
absolutely very crucial. And
Mm-hmm.
especially doing like a proper needs analysis. Like there are I work with a brokerage, there's dozens of products, half a dozen companies to work with, and really figuring out what your customer really needs and respecting those choices that
Mm-hmm.
they make about themselves and their bodies and their medications. Very crucial to finding them the best plan for them and their needs. And what I would also say is, on top of that, making sure that they're happy and satisfied after that.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Absolutely. That's wonderful. Now, the
Thank you.
book that you published, The Art of War Simplified, I understand there's another book, The Art of War. How do you compare those two?
Sure. So what I would say it's a little bit like kind of like the Bible, if you will. So you have, the main version of the Bible. You have the Art of War. It's almost like the King James Bible. It was intended to be much more word for word. This is
Mm-hmm.
more almost like the New Living Translation,
Mm-hmm.
if you will, or it's more of a paraphrased version that's designed to be easy to read. So I compare it almost to, those two different translations of the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. And so, any other books that you're planning on authoring to continue with this book?
Honestly, I really haven't thought about it yet. I've just a lot of it's just, and to me, part of it is it's not just the destination; it's the journey. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been something I've thought about absolutely, but to me, I'm just trying to enjoy the journey I can with like this one. And to me, you never know where inspiration strikes or where the next book comes about. And I never would have imagined 10 to 15 years ago this work that I penned in a college room in Gainesville, Florida, would
Mm-hmm.
get me to where I am today. So I haven't thought about it yet. I do believe there's going to be more in the future, but I'm just enjoying the journey with this one right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, what can you say to our viewing audience about your book, The Art of War Simplified? Many people may not understand when you use the word war. That's a huge statement. War. Break it
Mhm.
down to us so someone can understand exactly what you mean by war.
Sure. So what I would say is anything where you try to be your best self and you try to achieve your peak. And
Mm-hmm.
there may be competition, other teams, other businesses, other customers that you're thinking about. But to me, what it really boils down to is how do you make your mark and how do you achieve your potential and how
Mm-hmm.
do you do it in a world where everybody else is trying to do the same thing?
Yes, yes. And how to do it in a positive way too, because sometimes when
Absolutely.
we hear about war, it could be rather dangerous. But you're talking about it in a more of a positive perspective. Can you share that with us?
Sure. So as time's gone on, I really felt like, when I wrote the book when I did, that it was actually 10 to 15 years ahead
Mm-hmm.
of its time almost. And
Yeah.
to me, I actually hope that, kind of ironically, that it helps, bring a certain degree of peace and harmony and understanding, if you will, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of people all desire the same things. they go for a lot of the same stuff. And I even talk about this, where it's this idea of, if you can kind of arrange peace, or if you can head off severe conflicts, it's what's in the best interest of
Yes.
everyone involved. So
Hmm.
I actually hope it becomes a very positive thing, if you
Hmm.
will, which is kind of ironic, but you
Yeah.
know, I
Yeah.
think, as I'm trying to understand, the context and, where it is and what it hopes to do, that's definitely my hope. And I would not be happier if it made the world a better place.
Yes. Well, this definitely sounds like a bestseller book. Is there anything else about the book that you want to share with your audience today?
Yeah. So what I would say is, it was definitely a labor of love, but it's something where, um, sometimes it's not just about, consuming other people's materials. Sometimes it's about making your own. And to me, it's not just war, and yeah, I know you've asked a lot about war, but there's also the art, portion of it, where there's a lot of creativity in the world, and it's a
Hmm.
staple of human beings. And stories
Hmm.
are as old as time, and so is, being able to come up with things that are like beautiful in their own way.
Hmm.
So to me, it's a very positive thing, or it's not just about getting ahead, or it's about, you know, it's about a form of expression, if you will, and being your best self, and being creative in the process, and
Yes.
having fun doing it.
I love that. I love that. So true. Being creative, and being creative to me means being true to yourself and not
Absolutely.
trying to duplicate anybody else. Just be who you are. God has designed us uniquely, and if we would just operate in that uniqueness and what God has gifted in us, we can be successful and we can be winners in any and everything in life by just following that principle. I believe that being creative, because we all have that creativity within ourselves.
And to that point, a role model of mine is actually, Lewis Carroll. If you delve into his life, I know he was a mathematics professor. I believe it was at
Hmm.
Oxford, but a lot of his, story in his past definitely resonated with me. And of course, he wrote very
Hmm.
iconic, books and properties that got adapted into film as well. But also, to your point, the first thing I thought of when you mentioned that was that Oscar Wilde quote, "Be yourself, everyone else is already taken."
I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. Beautiful. Well, you certainly are being yourself. You are unique. You are creative. And I add, you are brilliant to be able
Thank
to
you.
publish such a book, The Art
Thank
of
you.
War Simplified. Our producers are saying we got about 2 minutes left. If you can just take 1 or 2 minutes of that time and let's wind this up, Mr. Best-selling author, because I know this is the way it's going to be, because there are people all around the world, regardless of what country they're in. Everybody wants to be a winner. Regardless,
Mhm.
wherever you are, there is creativity in you. You
Mhm.
are unique. You are an original. And with this
Thank
book,
you.
it's going to allow it to come out of you, and you're going to be
Mhm.
motivated and inspired to make the best out of yourself. Share with us in 1 minute your final say.
Sure. So what I would say is, I never set out, and I never thought when I wrote the book, my goal was never to be a bestseller. I viewed it as being very realistic about myself and the possibilities. I wrote it because it was something I enjoyed doing, and something that I was very passionate about. And to me,
Yes.
that's the real secret sauce to it all, is don't
Hmm.
focus on the result or on what others think.
I love it.
Um, Having that sense of humility and that self-awareness, but just doing it because you love to do it. And to me, the success is going to follow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well spoken, Vincent. Well, we're closing out this episode of Books of the Month show. I encourage you to get a copy of the book. I promise you it's going to be empowering to you. See you next time on the Books of the Month show.
Visit us at www.greatwritersmedia.com. Email us at info@greatwritersmedia.com or call us at +1 877 556 0487.